Hey everyone, and welcome back. And I'm so excited to be joined by our good friend Tamer. How are you, Tamer?
I am fantastically well. How are you? How are you, my friend? And how's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're all good here at Team DC. If you haven't caught a live with Tamer before, definitely stick around. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you should learn a whole bunch. But without further ado, what are you going to be sharing with us today, Tamer? Over to you.
Today, the plan is to share my process and approach for creating what I've called the flourished majuscules, or flourished capital letters, if you want to use a less fancy word, in Procreate. So I shared these all basically the last part of last year on
Mhm.
Instagram, and created a challenge for other people to do one letter a week, and we had a lot of fun. Created all sorts of fun stuff. So I'll be sharing the approach I used to create those.
Love it. And this is definitely going to be a session where you should have your own iPad at the ready at home. So if you're watching this on a laptop or computer, get the iPad out and follow along. It's going to be really interactive, I think. But Tamer,
Yeah.
without further ado, do you want to kick us off?
All right. So again, first majuscules. Majuscule is just a fancy word for capital letter. So again, a huge thank you, Tom, DC, everybody, and everybody in the community for having me back. I'm always so happy to chat with you guys. My goal here is always to share, be completely transparent, share everything honestly and openly. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you, and ask questions in the comments. Anything I can do to help, feel free to shout out. Our goal today is to learn how to create what, again, I'm calling flourished majuscules. And there's an example here on the right side of the screen of the letter S, which when I was making, I was thinking of Superman or something like that. So
I mean,
we'll be
I'm
learning how to.
learning already, Tamer. I didn't even know what a majuscule was. So I just learned a new word.
Yeah, it's one of those fancy calligraphy words that we like, to minuscule and majuscule, as
It
opposed to
is.
lowercase and uppercase.
It sounds like some kind of sea creature to me or something.
Right, the spotted majuscule from down,
Yeah,
deep in the trenches.
exactly.
So I will not be making sea creatures today, but we will be doing letters. So that's the quick intro. The supplies. Hopefully, like I said last time we did a Procreate session, I can't give you Procreate for free. I would if I could, but that's in the App Store, obviously. But hopefully, you're able to get some Blackletter brushes and a grid image as a freebie. That will help if you want to follow along today with what we're going to be doing. And so the quick version of the setup, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk through. We're just going to set up the canvas initially, which is just picking the size and then setting up a grid is what I usually use to help form the letters. The second step will be drawing the first line and then building the letter around that. And I'll mention a little bit more when we get into that. Once that's done, we'll start to add some cool design elements to the image. You can see a little bit of addition here with these kind of drips, or like icicles, or whatever you want to call them. And then at the very end, I'll show the process that I use for making the flourishes and give a quick intro to that, and explain any final elements or finishing touches that we can add to the drawing.
Incredible.
And that is really it. We'll just slide into the demonstration now. So, all right. So again, this is the kind of a letter that we're going to be creating. And so this is a capital A. And I'll walk through this real quick, and then if we have time, I could take a random request and we could try to design one on the fly. But I'm gonna start from scratch here. So I'm gonna create a canvas. I'll just go with a square for this one to start, and that'll give us a snazzy new blank white canvas. And my first step is always to switch the canvas to be black. So I just tapped in the layers here in the top right, and then tap on this background color, and then just slide it into the black area. And now I've got a black canvas. And then obviously we'll start using the next layer. So a few ways you can add a grid, which I like to use just to kind of help me line stuff up sometimes, is you can add an image that's a grid. And I believe there's one in the freebie pack that we included, or I have in a couple of the packs, I have a grid guide brush that you can use. So I usually will just grab this and then just create a quick grid in the background. Again, like, I'm not going to be designing with the grid or like using it in any way as part of the design. So I don't have to be too precious about how it's laid out or anything like that. At the end of the day, we're just going to hide it. Okay. So I've created my grid. Then, because it's kind of overpowering when it's super bright, I'm gonna take the opacity down just so that I can see it faintly. And I usually go, maybe around between 12 and 15% or something like that. I'll keep it a little bit brighter so that you can see it more clearly. I'm looking at the screen.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
That's a little bit more clear for the seminar. And that's really it. The super important step here is don't forget to start a new layer. Otherwise, your grid will be a permanent part of your design. So I always like to start a new layer, and I tend to work with a lot of layers. I like to be able to make adjustments if I want to. So I might even just put a single stroke on a layer and then create a new layer and then adjust it in case I want to tweak something later. I have a lot of flexibility and don't have to erase or mask or anything like that. So you'll see my little cool neon cable from time to time pop in. I'll try to keep my arm over it. So again, I just to recap: background color black, started at a grid layer, and then I'm adding a layer on top of it to actually start my design. So now all I'm going to do is grab a brush. Anyone has a preference, feel free to shout it out. I have a couple. I was planning to use a brush from the Bewitched series, which I think are kind of fun to play with because they do a random effect. So I'll start with that, and then feel free to shout out if you want anything different. But this set here is basically like a collection that's mixed from the Marble set and the Bewitched set. But we'll start with this one because it's fun, and it's got a little bit of a scroll effect to it. All right, so I'm going to zoom in to the canvas now so that I can see it fairly big, and then just do a quick test of the brush size, and that looks pretty good. And one quick note too here, I selected within these sets and within several brushes, you have the option for pressure sensitivity with how opaque it becomes. And I like to use this one because you can create some really cool like 3D type effects just by varying the pressure of your brush. So I'm going with a 45-degree angle brush from the Bewitched set, and I'm going to be using that to start, and I have it with the pressure sensitive version so that, let me turn the grid off real quick. So you'll see if I'm drawing really faintly, you don't see anything, but then as I start to push and let go, you get these 3D effects. Or
oh, wow.
You get
it's
a
like
fade.
Iridescent or something.
Yeah, it's really fun to play with. So that's the easiest way to get like this kind of a 3D effect that I've found, is using that pressure sensitivity, especially with these. So I'm going to start all white for now, and then we can always colorize it afterwards. So the first step when I do these, let me turn my grid back on, is I'll always start with like a bigger brush. I'm usually in the 70 to 80% range when I'm writing these, so about that big or larger. So the first step with making these, so I'm going to do an A this time, is just deciding on the first stroke. So you can obviously create a very, like a traditional letter with traditional angles and stuff like that. I didn't draw the vertical line, but it would look like this maybe, and an A that looks like that. What I like to do with these designs is I really like to just play around and try different ideas. A lot of the times I'll try to start with the stroke that you wouldn't expect to start with for the letter. Like an example would be like if I'm doing a C, that would look like this usually, right? And for a black letter C, it would probably kind of have that type of a look. I'll say, okay, what if I start with a stroke that looks like that, and try to build a C around this, and that gives me a lot of, it forces me to think creatively. Maybe I do a straight line here then, or I do a curve in this direction, or maybe I really lean into it and do another curve that way. So a lot of my design for these flourished capitals, we'll just go with a simple description, is around just an initial stroke, like just picking one and then building off of that. So
love it. Tamer, I know you're using a few brushes today. Which specific pack that brush is from?
This is from the Bewitched Blackletter set. So
okay, perfect.
So hopefully it should be the image has got the word Bewitched like scratched kind of in a scratchy font on the on the top. It's a really fun one. When I first discovered how to make this effect, I just probably hours I played with it and started writing. So again, I'm just going to start with an A similar to the one that you just saw, just so that we're dealing with an example that you've seen. So to start that A, the first stroke that I came up with was just basically a curved line at the bottom, just like that. And again, so what I did was I drew this one fairly consistent pressure, so you got a fairly solid line. So what I would usually do is start with a kind of a softer touch, and then build the pressure, and then release it a little bit, and then that gives me that kind of a cool. It looks like it's fading into the distance at the top and bottom. So
Nice.
that's really it for the first line. And then, like I said, I tend to be a bit of a layer heavy person, and I don't worry too much if something's off center, because especially at the start, because I can just pick it up, tap here on the move, and then I can orient it to where I might want it to be. And I'll show you a trick for doing that again later, as we get more complicated. So I'll usually start with that initial stroke, and then I'll build from there. So I've got that curve down, and I'm making an A. So I'm gonna start a new layer, and then I'm gonna move to a 90-degree brush, because right now I know in my head I basically want to just draw a straight vertical line. So I included in all of these brush packs. Each of the brushes is available at like 30 degrees, 30 or 35, 45, I think 60, and then 90 as well. So I'm going to just grab this 90-degree brush from the same pack, and then I'll show you a trick for adding the straight line. So this is where the grid helps me. I know I need to shoot for something that's around here, right? Because of where this line ended. And so I can just follow the grid up. And then I'm going to draw a line coming straight down. And I don't have to be too precious about this, because if I hold, again, I can create a straight line just by retaining my, like the pen on the iPad surface. So I'm just going to start from the top and then draw a straightish line down to there. And then that gives me a perfectly vertical line. All right. And if I want, I can start another layer. And now I want to build the top of that A. So same again, using pressure and just the directional line. I'm going to do like the top of a house. So I'll start, oh, sorry, I'm still on the 90-degree brush. So I'm going to switch back to the 45-degree brush. Starting at the corner here, just going to draw a line up that basically follows the angle of a 45-degree angle, which is the angle of the brush. Okay. And then draw a faint line there. And then I'm again going to apply low pressure and then high pressure, and then the low pressure to fade out. Okay. And again, this is another place where you can have some fun and be creative. I can do a line up here and then do a super pointy curve like that. I could make it rounder and start going in this direction. And every one of these variances will change how the letter looks, right? So again, I always encourage people, just try to play and have fun and see what you create. Don't stress too much about, oh, this doesn't look good. Just have fun, and if you'll end up creating something cool that you weren't expecting. And if you, especially with Procreate, the benefit is, you just tap twice and you've undone what you did before. So you have the opportunity to experiment with a lot of things. So again, I'm going to draw a line around the angle with the pen, and then draw a diagonal line going down. And I'm just varying the pressure to get the cool effects. And when I'm doing this, I'm generally trying to roughly keep the angle consistent between this line at the top and then that line at the bottom, which I just accentuated with a couple of obnoxiously big lines. Okay.
The texture is kind of blowing my mind, though. I've never seen anything quite like this.
It's a lot of fun. That's why I called it Bewitched, because if you hold it still creates lines in a bunch of different directions. So I found it really fun. And then just to finish out the A, again, I can create another layer, and then I will usually here, just to give the idea that it's receding into the back a little bit, start a little bit fainter and then add pressure as I go. And again, this stroke, I could do a very curvy line like that. I could just come straight down. That's one option. I mean, theoretically, you could do that and then find a way to add interest to the middle or something like that. So again, I just encourage you to have fun. So I'm going to start low pressure, build the pressure a little bit, and then lose the pressure at the end. And now I've got...
It looks like chrome or something. It's this really cool metallic effect coming through.
Yeah, it's really just varying the pressure. It makes it, when you... this or like applies to photography and all of this stuff as well. When you create like, the bright stuff looks more bright when you've got dark to compare it to in the picture, right? So it's important to add some dark stuff, because then the bright stuff looks that much brighter. If I do everything with this super heavy line, then it looks very flat, right?
Yeah.
But if I start faint and then I have like a really small bright part, then it looks like Tom was, like you were just saying, it looks like chrome. It looks like it's almost metallic.
Yeah,
and you can do other things like create a little bright spot there and another one, and then it makes it maybe look like it's fading. You can just by pushing a little harder.
Love it.
So now I'm going to call this basically enough as the basic shape of the A. Okay. So now I'm going to start adding some other interesting elements. And what you can do, what's nice with Procreate, the angle of a brush with Procreate used to get locked with the orientation of the layer. But now you can actually rotate the canvas, and the angle of the brush will stay consistent with the pen. So all I'm doing now is I'm looking, okay, where else do I need a little bit something interesting? I could do a crossbar type thing. I often like to come at these starting points and add maybe a couple of flourished lines off of the edge here. So I'm going to rotate the canvas until the brush comes at like a pleasing angle where I can start thin and get wide. Does that make sense? And so I'm just going to pull in from one of these corners, and then, I could draw a giant line like that, or I could draw a curvy line like this. So again, experiment, play, have fun. So for today, I'll just draw one line like this that gets bright in the middle, and then maybe I'll even draw another shorter one like that. And you can see now we've kind of got a cool A shape, right? And if it's off center, it's okay, because we can I can grab all the layers here. I tend to like to group them eventually, so I could grab all the layers in the group, however you want, and then grab the whole thing and then shift it around. That grabbed the grid.
I feel like this is going to be at the start of a novel. We're on the first page. You see that? Is it Major School? Is that the name? Majuscule. So, you get the Majuscule, and then it goes into the small text to complete the rest of the word and goes into the novel.
Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like. If anybody watched SpongeBob back in the day, it's very similar to the first letter of his book report, where he was supposed to write a book report, and then he wrote the word "the," and it was very nicely embellished "the." But that was all he had. So sorry, I'm just separating the layers now because my grid ended up as part of the group. So if I move the group, I was moving the layer. But you can see here now I can move the whole layer. Okay, and again, you can fill in. You could fill in the inside spot with like a flourish like that if you want. Anything you want. I tend to potentially. Well, we'll just leave that one for now. That one looks okay. And now basically the initial framework of the letter is done. And now let's say if I wanted to change something now, if I felt like, maybe a couple of the strokes weren't great. If you keep them in individual layers, which I abandoned a little bit here at the end, you can then just turn off one part and then come in and fix it. I'm thinking maybe I should have made this shorter. Then it gives me an opportunity to just come in and fix that part and maybe move some other stuff in that I liked without having to make a complex change. So that's basically it. So now we've got the basic layer laid out, right? The next step that I'll usually follow, which is where the grids do come in handy, is I'll start to build an outline around it. So I'm going to create a layer as well, and then I'm going to come in with another, like a detail brush. And these two are also part of the Bewitched pack. I called them Fumos and Periculum. Bonus points to anybody who knows the reference from that. I was leaning into the Bewitched idea.
Let us know in the live chat.
Can anyone guess where I got those names from?
You get a giant brownie point from Tamer if you do.
Good. Tom, I figured you might know. I thought you might know.
Well, now I can pretend that I do know, but I'm just letting the
Yeah.
community guess. That was my ploy. I just don't want to steal the thunder from the
I
wonderful
gotcha. There you
DC
go.
community.
Tom's a giver. He's a good man. So again, next step I'll follow is I'll start to draw outlines. So I'll tend to, so the brush is really huge right now. So it's going to draw these kind of smoky, large outlines, but I really just want something far more detail looking. So I'm going to come down to, let's try 12%. Yeah, that looks better to me. And these ones vary based on the pressure will vary both the opacity and the size. So what I'll usually do is just pick a small brush and then just kind of start to trace the, I'm going to get rid of my layer. I'll just start to trace the outlines in places where I want to add maybe a cool effect. And I'll vary the pressure a lot of the time and then let it trail off. And I'll just come in and add this to different parts of the image just to kind of create just another interesting visual element to the picture. So I'll come in and do that. Here, I always have the problem when I touch my the pad of my hand, it will do an undo stroke. So maybe I'll do one here. And again, I'm varying the pressure a little bit, so it looks a little bit varied. Maybe I'll do one here to get that smoky look. And you can see like the first one didn't maybe look like it was adding a whole lot to the design, but as I add it around in different places, it starts to give kind of an interesting look to the letter as well that it just didn't have with the default brushes. I'm going to be a little sloppy, but we'll you'll get the idea here. And I'll do the same here. All right, just to get a little bit of an outline around it. And then what I'll do, and again, I can do this as a new layer after I've added that basic outline, is I'll come in, and this is where the grid really helps, is just start to add, I'll call them icicles or any, you could call them anything, and just add like maybe a little dot and then draw a line straight down. And then if I keep holding, the line will straighten out and I can extend it or shrink it. So maybe I'll add like a group of 3 here, a smaller one.
So you're just dropping off with the pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Starting with bigger pressure to get a bigger spot here and then like lightening out and just making them different lengths. And you can see how it starts to get a little bit more. There's my undo issue again. It starts to get like a little bit more interesting as we build up these effects. And again, this is where the grid lines really help because they can help you keep straight lines. And then obviously at the end, you can turn them off. So I'll usually go in and draw, like here I found a point. So maybe I'll draw one here or even just off center from it or something like that. And just build
I've never seen icicles on typography before, Tamer. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know what led me to start doing this, but just a fun experiment. Make it look maybe a little bit more gothic or something like that. So yeah, you can go in and then fill in the entire photo like that. Okay, and then I'm always keeping the layer separate, so it gives me flexibility later, and then I can just group these two, and then that way I can turn off the entire thing, on or off. And then the last part, I'll get to some special effects in a second, but I just want to make sure that I get through the kind of the meat of this. Okay, and I feel like maybe I drew it too big, so I can always adjust the size of the canvas. So just so as a tip for you too, if you ever are working and the canvas starts to get too small, you can go into, I'm going to cancel out and show again, under the, sorry, that's the gallery. Under the settings, tapping on canvas and then crop and resize. I can now make the canvas a little bigger because maybe I limited myself too much. When it comes to adding flourishes, I like to have a lot of space because it makes them feel more natural when you've got more space to work with rather than if I have a boundary here and then I'm trying to fit a flourished line, within a tight space and I have to end it early. Okay. So I'm going to go back in and add another layer for the flourishing. And I'm going to pick this periculum brush. I tried to create it so that it looked like it was kind of like a magic spell with light streaks and stuff like that. So it again varies the opacity and the size based on the pressure. which is great for flourishing. So now I'll come in, and I really don't need the grid so much now, so I'm just going to turn it off. Hopefully that'll make it easy for everyone to see as well. So I'm going to start here, and then I'll tend to look for corners where I can build off of for a flourish. So this is going to be a good corner because I can start to build a flourish based on that point and swoop it around and stuff. And when you're writing flourishes, I reckon, like, there are shapes you can get used to drawing circles over and over. The infinity sign is a good one to practice as well, just to get used to kind of creating these fluid motions. And I'd be happy to come back and talk a whole lot more about flourishes because I've been studying a lot about these recently.
I'm sure we can do a session.
Yeah, sure. But it's really about just trying to create something that looks fluid. And the great thing about Procreate is you can just keep practicing these. Like, one thing that I used to do with Procreate, if I even just turn off all of my groups and just create a canvas and just start practicing drawing flourishes. Like, you can, obviously it helps to have a visible layer with a brush selected. So this one's visible. So you can just start drawing, circular shapes like that. That's a cool flourish pattern. I could start, it's good to also practice starting in different directions. So in this one, I came counterclockwise, thinking of how a clock works now. I can go clockwise and start from this direction and do kind of an infinity shape, right? And all you have to do is you can undo, you can keep the ones you like, but just kind of get used to drawing these types of shapes and linking them together. You can do spirals if you want and stuff like that. So Procreate is a great way, especially because of the streamlining of the brushes, that can allow you to, and then again, you can vary the pressure, that can allow you to start practicing creating a lot of fancy flourishes. And it's really easy, and you can just quickly undo and then create another one. A pattern that I like to use a lot is kind of a big circle curving around and then stopping partway in and then drawing another circular design like that.
Very cool.
So it's got kind of a point. So if I go back now and turn back my letter back on, I'll again just start looking for these corners and areas here where it looks like I could continue the letter like that, right? And then just start building a flourish. And one thing when you're doing these is try not to intersect like this line too much. You kind of want it to have its own space. So maybe even down there looks good. I could come up to the side here and draw, a pattern like that. Again, just varying the width. And this is what I mean. Like, because my canvas was constrained here, I felt like I had to crop it in there, and I felt like it got unnatural. But if I just scooch over and then give myself a little bit more space, then I can create something that maybe has a little bit more room to it. Or I could, you could just do a simple curve like that. I could come off the top of one of these lines that we did before and just add a little line like that.
Ooh, that looks cool.
Yeah, so you just have a lot of fun. You can even, I've come off like a kind of a tangent line off of a curve before. You can do stuff like that. So just playing around with a bunch of different ideas that will help kind of give your design a little bit more, give it some accents and some flourish. And you can tell if I build up a lot of these detail lines and then build up some flourishing, you can create a really cool look. I got obviously just done this one on the fly. So a cool thing that I like to do with these as well, if like you put your flourishes in a group, to give it the 3D type of a look, if I add a layer mask to these, so I'm just going to tap on the layer and then click mask, and that gives me this layer mask. Hopefully everybody's moderately familiar with these. If not, just let me know. You can explain them a little bit, but I'll then grab like a soft brush. These are just default Procreate brushes to do some shading. And then I'll come in picking a black brush color, right? So black is going to hide anything that I draw over on the layer mask. White will reveal it. That's why everything's visible right now. So I'll then come in, and I can even vary the opacity of my black brush because maybe I don't want to hide it completely, and I'll explain why here. So if I wanted this line from my flourish to like hide behind this stroke, okay, all I have to do then is on the mask with my black pen, just draw over the line. And you can't tell what happened there. But if I draw here, you see how now it starts to vanish? So it looks like it's now hidden. I'm going to go all the way just so it's 100% clear. So you can see, I'm going to even go overboard. So you can see there was a line before what I drew, and now it's gone. That's obvious. Okay. So all I'll do is around these areas, again, it's because I just undid the mask. I'll add the mask again, layer mask, black brush. I'll pass over here and I'll go a little bit further just so that it looks like it recedes. Maybe there's a shadow behind it. And then the reason I was telling you about the opacity is for this middle section, because it looks a little transparent, maybe I'll just remove it a little so that it looks like it's tucked away behind it. And then I'll remove it from the darker side. I'll remove it more fully. And now if I zoom out, it looks like this line goes in front of this one and then slides behind that one.
I'm liking the attention to detail, my friend.
Yeah. I think that I really do believe it's these little things that end up making a lot of difference, because it really just gives it a 3D look. And I said again, it's super easy, very easy to draw. So I'd usually do that or down here as well, make it look like it goes behind that line, and then I left a little bit there as well. So you can see very quickly we just added. We created the letter based on an experimental first stroke. We added the frame built around that, added some flourishes, added some kind of interesting outlines, and then added some larger flourishes, and then added a 3D effect. So that is the basic process overall. You can then, like a trick that I like to use if I want to retain all my layers and colorize something, it can be really cool to color the flourish a different color than the actual letter. So what I'll often do, just because I like to work as non-destructively as I can, is like I can even just duplicate this group now, right? And now I've got the whole letter again, right? It's just duplicated. I'm going to turn this back one off because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to grab all of the layers for the letter and just pinch them together, and that flattens it, and it creates just one layer for the letter itself. And now I can take this, and then I can add I can add a color layer on top of it, right? If I add a fill layer, where is it? Right here. And then I can color it. We're going with neon blue. Let's stick with neon blue. If anyone has a color you'd love to see, just holler it out in the chat and I'll colorize it. So I'm going to fill this layer with this blue color, and then I'm going to do a clipping mask, which is just going to apply it to the letter underneath it. So again, I took the individual layers.
That looks so cool.
Yeah, merge them. Oh, and what gets even cooler is now if I do the same thing to my flourish, right? Ooh, lime. Okay, I've never tried lime. Let's do lime. And then you saw how easy it was to change, right? Like that's the benefit of kind of doing this non-destructive approach is I just dragged it onto my color mask layer, and poof, I've got the whole.
This reminds me of like packaging design for an energy drink, like Monster energy drinks or something like that with the green.
Right, exactly. So if you want a career in energy drinks, just all you got to do, learn this technique and lime green it, and you're in. So I'm just
onto something with the lime green. It's pretty cool.
So anyone have a color pick for the flourishes?
I'm going to nominate. Let's go purple.
Okay, so purple will come over here. I'll just go with roughly the. Awesome. So there you go, green and purple.
Look at that.
And then the benefit of this is I can do the same thing. Like I can just copy. These were my two. Remember my outline layers. I can do the same thing. I can just, because I've grouped everything, I can duplicate the group, turn this one off, pinch these closed. And this again is a balance between I still have my my individual original layers if I want to ever edit them. And then same thing, I've got my layer with those outlines. I can just create another fill.
I'm getting witchy vibes from it.
Yeah, this definitely, which is befitting for the Bewitched Blackletter brushes that I used. So,
and it's so true.
Here's a couple of bonus tips too. So I could if I wanted to also add this is new with the latest version of Procreate. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, okay, and pull it up. Oh man, my clipping mask vanished. That is what happens when you lose your clipping mask. Fill layer, sorry. Nope, I don't know what just happened. I'm gonna back up. What? I'll just do it too. Let me just duplicate. And then I'm going to pull this one up. Okay, it's because it's white. So again, I'm going to take clipping mask off. Okay, so basically I just threw a white layer on top of it. So a new white layer of the same letter. So a new feature with the latest version of Procreate, the 5X one, is they added this, where is it? Bloom, which if anyone remembers I did an old photography workshop with DC in the past. It basically gives kind of a bright effect to it. So I liken this to kind of an Orton effect. So I can take something, make it really bright, and then just turn the opacity way down, and it can give it a little bit of a glow. So this is like before and after. You may like it, you may not, but just to be aware that there are some other cool effects, and I'll usually put it behind. So you can add like a little bit of a glow to it, and even potentially change the.
That's normal blending mode, or would you go like color dodge or something?
I would probably pick something a little bit more, or even
like screen or something.
Yeah, screen. Where is it? Like screen or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you can again go through the blend modes and see what looks better. But
oh, that was cool.
Yeah, and you can even like they added a glitch effect too. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but you can glitchify it just by scrolling to the right if you like glitch effects.
Damn.
More and less glitching. So
this I'm getting like fusion of different styles.
Yeah, it's an odd combination for calligraphy, but
yeah,
just to be aware that they do keep adding stuff.
The witch in Wicked has invested in Bitcoin and had some technical issues or something.
Right.
We're merging worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as a really quick final tip that I can share, unless am I going too far over or?
No, all good. We're going to run a little bit long today because we were late starting with technical issues.
Perfect.
You're all good.
Perfect. Awesome. So what I also included in these brush packs were these ink spray effects, and what you can use these for is to just create kind of a grunge look, but they can also be used to do something else, which I like to show people as well. So this is just an ink spray brush from one of the packs, and I typically include them with all of the they're different ink sprays. They're not the same ones, but they're typically included with every pack. So for giggles, I'm going to go to the very back and start a layer at the very bottom of my stack, because for now I want whatever I do to be behind the letter. So let's pick another cool. Maybe we'll go orange. I think I heard orange before. Maybe orange or something like that. And I'm going to go with a big brush, and then I'm going to go even bigger. Let's go crazy. And then I can just like quickly add like some ink splots around the canvas just by dragging it around. And then you can reduce the opacity and it'll give it some like inky looks. But the tip that I wanted to mention is you don't have to just use these kind of ink splatter brushes for that. Another cool thing that you can do with them, let's say I go back to, I'm going to go to the very top, create a new layer, and then I'm going to grab my purple again, and I'm going to pick a brighter purple just to like add an accent. And then I'm going to use a small version of my ink spray brush, right? I'm going to make it even smaller. Heck, maybe we'll even go a little bit yellow, make it even more magical, and go maybe saturated. Okay, so you see how it got very small? So now I can zoom in and potentially like even go over this, and you can add just some cool magical looking dust clouds and stuff to these flourishes just by going over them with these rough brushes. So it can just be another way.
That looks so cool.
Yeah, and you can even do it like I could take the green that I used, the awesome lime green, and do it on the edges of the letter, and it'll give it a little bit of a sorry if I'm going fast, but it'll give it a little bit of like a dusty look on the corners or on the edges. Just another way to give it a little bit of an interesting look.
Yeah,
I like to mention that because
fairy dust.
Yeah, so it looks like it's a little bit magical on the back end, like it's a magic spell or something.
That's so cool. Can we do another bit on the purple? I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, adds so
totally.
much depth to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go crazy neon yellow. So, and then you could obviously come in with like a blend mode, and then change the blend mode of this like dust spray. I would probably put it behind it even so it doesn't look like it's in front, and maybe, or similar to what we did before. I'll do this. I could add a mask. I'm going to take it off of clipping mask. I'm going to add a mask to this, and then using my soft brush again. Or, I mean, actually, I could use the spray, but we'll just go with the soft one. And my black pen, I can just start to like hide bits of it. And I could go with a low opacity brush. Like I could just, like, maybe I want it to look like there's nothing going on here, hide it here. So you could even make it look like it weaves in and out just by adding some blackness to it. And you get cool effects like that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, there's so many things that you can try, but this kind of summing up, this was the approach that I used to create all these letters, the majuscules.
Very cool. Have you got any in your gallery that we can see just for different
Yeah,
examples?
absolutely. I've got them all because they all started here. So if I go from workshop and go to, here's all of the capitals. So here's the entire alphabet, and then so the original A, it would have made a whole lot of sense if I'd organized them alphabetically, but I'm not. Apparently, I'm not that organized. So here's the original A. I did these with the marble brush set. I get asked that a lot on Instagram. Is like, how do you create the? Sorry, I just drew a stroke on the layer mask, and it really just comes from the texture that's in these brushes, and again the layer opacity, the pressure and opacity tip works here as well. So
Amazing.
the texture comes from the brushes, and then you can see flourishes. There's the little icicles as well. So that's an A. And then like this
There
is
was
the T.
quite a bright one as well.
Yeah,
But
there's this
please,
T.
show the T first. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
here's the T. And so you can also add like a white layer on top, and then use those the ink spray brushes to hide parts of that layer, and then that will like reveal a letter underneath. That's how I did this. So
Incredible. Yeah, I love that. I think these examples in your gallery are just showing how versatile today's session techniques can be. Yeah, there's like that neon one
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
What is
I
that one?
accidentally clicked on S. This one, the A.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is I took the same A, and then I applied that bloom effect to it, and was just playing around with using the bloom. So the initial letter is there, and then I
Hmm.
applied that bloom effect and then colorized it a little bit, and then you can get all sorts of cool effects.
It's surprisingly versatile because we just saw one that was kind of black and white and had more gothic vibes. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen one that's energy drink West End vibes. We've
Yeah,
seen this one for me screams like urban graffiti. I could see it being used on that kind of campaign. The
yeah,
other one had that kind of phoenix, like stunning fiery vibes. Like there's so much you can do with this one effect.
yeah. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play with these, and just tips as well for folks when you're let me I'll go back to the one that we started with. Here's the DC workshop A. Another thing that you can do too, you could just use a smooth. I'm gonna use the kiss approach and keep it simple for myself. And so I could take, I could start with that cool lime green, and then maybe I could go a little bit darker if I want to give it like if I want to give more of a 3D shaded look. I'm just gonna make sure I'm above. So I can then. Whoa, I've got to go back to my lime green. And apologies if I'm going too fast. Let me know. I'm just trying to fit everything in. But I can then like shade the back part of this to make it look a little bit. I'm going to overdo it just so you get an idea. Let's just do black so it's obvious. And then I'm going to do I don't have the clipping mask on just because I'm trying to do it quickly, but this will That's why I went with black. But you can get the idea that I can shade that. And then if I go to like maybe a white, and then I add some white to here, I can lighten up. I won't go over just since I don't have the mask, but I can lighten up these edges, and you can get even a little bit more depth to your picture that way.
Incredible. What a great session. Thank you so much, Tamer.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Let's give it up again for Tamer. Tamer, thank you. That was great. We will see you really soon.
Thank you. Thank you all. Sorry for the technical difficulties, and thank you all so much. Can't wait to see everything, everybody.
Bye, my friend.